A gang of armed thieves has raided the house of Mr. Gupta late last night. So, I'll give you a hint, right? Whenever there is time expressions mentioned in the context, I want you to pay attention, focus on that, identify that so you can know where the error is. A, B, C or D. Where is the error in this one? Okay. Though you guys have identified the part, let's look at the context behind it, right? So, when I'm saying late last night being my clue phrase, right? So, which means I really don't need a perfect tense concept. Maybe keeping in mind late last night, but when I'm talking about something that happened late last night, I'm talking about a past action, right? The simple past tense should suffice. Why do I need to bring in the perfect tense concept? I'm not talking about a period of time that happened in the past, right? When will you use the past perfect tense, had, raided, when there are two actions happening in the past? The context is not talking about two actions in the past, right? Let's go back to the context. A gang of armed thieves has raided the house of Mr. Gupta. There's only one context there. There are no two actions happening in the past, so I don't need had raided. Past perfect tense. That's what I'm saying. Perfect tense concept is not required at all. Has raided again is present perfect tense. There is no relevance to the current. Very clearly it says late last night, which means I don't need that present tense at all, has, out, right? So, yes, all I need to do is, I just need to remove has, because raided helps me with late last night. A gang of armed thieves raided the house of Mr. Gupta late last night. Simple past tense. Had raided, incorrect. Why? There are no two actions in the past. Yeah? Has raided, incorrect. Why? No relevance to the present. My clue phrase being late last night. Right? That's it. The error is in part B, no doubt. That you got right. But just for you to understand the concept, I just need the simple past tense. That's it. Let's look at this one. Today I met a lady who was my teacher 15 years ago. Today I met a lady who was my teacher 15 years ago. Now tell me where the error is. Now that I've explained a concept, I want you to apply the same concept here. Time expression kya hai? 15 years ago. Now you tell me, where is the error? I'm going to give you time for this because I just explained a concept for you. I want you to apply the same concept. Where's the error, guys? Let's look at this, okay? Now, in the context, there are two actions in the past, right? One action is, I met a lady. Second action is, she was my teacher when? 15 years ago. Now, we just said, boss, when there are two actions in the past, the first action in this, in 1 and 2, which is the first action? 15 years ago obviously has to be the first action, right? That has to come before this person met the lady, because obviously he met the lady only today. Which means the second one is the first action and the first one is the second action. Hai na? So when there are two actions in the past, the first action is what is in the past perfect tense. And the second action is in the simple past tense, which means I don't have to change met here, which is absolutely fine because it is a second action. I met her today, but not was, she had been my teacher 15 years ago. So the past perfect tense has to come in where? The first action, where she was 15 years ago. Hai na? The error is in part C. Are you following? Very simple. Had been. Why? Because we are talking about simple, na? Very simple. If there are two actions in the past, the first action is always in the past perfect tense. The second action is in the simple past tense. The context will help you. 15 years ago has to be the first action. Today has to be the second action, because after that only this will follow. I met her today, but she had been my teacher 15 years ago. I met her today. Right? Easy? So a lot of us get confused between past perfect tense and simple past tense. The first sentence that we saw earlier, example, was to do with simple past tense. I don't need any other tense. Late last night. Only one action is there in the context. Second sentence, two actions are there. two actions in the past. Accordingly, I'll have to, whenever there are two actions in the past, immediate bulb. Okay, first action, perfect tense, second action, simple past tense. Finish. That is the rule. Next one, how close the ball will come depends on how forcefully it was hit. How close the ball will come depends on how forcefully it was hit. Where is the error? Are you guys able to identify the error? I'll give you a clue. In terms of time reference, we are talking about the ball is still coming, which means it has relevance to the present or even the future, which means I need to look at my verbs and see if they are giving the right tense. Depends on how forcefully it was hit. We are talking about an action that started sometime in the past, but it has relevance to the present, which means I need a perfect tense, right? That's the definition of a perfect tense. The definition of a perfect tense, the only difference is present tense means it has relevance to the current situation. Past tense means it has relevance to a period in the past, but it happened over a period of time. That is why we talk about two actions, right? So in the context, how close the ball will come depends on, which means there is relevance to the present, the ball is still yet to come, depends on how forcefully it not was hit but has been. Are you following? Why? Because there is relevance to the present. Depends on, the ball will come. I don't need the past tense here. I need the perfect tense here, present perfect tense. Error is in part D. Are you guys following? Right? All of these, if you see, obviously these are all errors pertaining to tenses. Right? In the context, there are some clue phrases. Either a time expression is there, or there are some clue phrases which is telling me, hey, does the action have relevance to the present or the past? Or are we talking about an action started sometime in the past, it has relevance to the present? Right? Always look out for time-based expressions, key phrases that are referring to which time of action is it focusing on. The fireman could not succeed in rescue the child, although they could put out the fire. As soon as you read it only, you know something is wrong with this part. This is basically to do with just what can I say, sentence construction, I would say. And there is a clue phrase for that. Your clue phrase is succeed in, right? You always succeed in doing something, or not succeed, as in this context, right? Not succeed in doing something, which means I need a continuous tense form. Yes, the error is in part B, where I'm saying was Reshmi succeeded in winning. It is always followed by an ing form. Yes. Shreyashi succeeded in getting the job. Yeah. Mamta succeeded in deceiving her boyfriend. Right? So you succeed in doing something, which means succeed in rescuing. That's it. Let's see if you crack this. Although we are free for the last 45 years or so, yet we continue to be economically backward. Easy one, if you ask me. There is a time expression helping us with the context, so it's easy for us to identify which part has the error. So obviously our clue phrases for the last 45 years, which means we're talking about an action that started 45 years back and it is continuing till now. So a lot of you came back and said C, yes. But another very obvious error is, right, again, I don't need this yet. I completely agree. It's contradictory in meaning. It's superfluous in meaning. But in terms of tense, right, a much more obvious error is what? Not are, no? Because we are referring to an action that started 45 years back. So it just cannot be only about present tense. This has to change to present perfect tense. Although we have been free for the last 45 years or so, we continue to be economically backward, right? So I will give you the benefit of doubt because you said part C, because yet is there, but please keep in mind these sort of superfluous errors, right, is something that what do I say, somebody who's very sound in grammar, as in technically it shouldn't be there. I just gave you examples, right? When I have a sentence starting with although, I don't need a yet or a but because it brings in the same meaning. And in this context, yes, you are right when you say yet shouldn't be there. But from an exam point of view, right, hopefully you will not have these sentences where you have to choose between more than one part that has the error. So given the context, even I didn't check the question, right, otherwise I would have removed the yet. But let's say a question like this comes in the exam where I have a redundant meaning, I don't need although and yet in the same sentence, but a more obvious error would be the tense error, right? Why? Because we're saying, hey, this action started 45 years back and it is relevant now. That's why I'm saying although, not we have been free for the last 45 years or so, yet, so if I have to choose between these two errors, I will choose the tense error, which is a more, not powerful, which is a more obvious error because of the time phrase there, for the last 45 years. Are you following with me? So choose wisely, I'm hoping you will not get into a position where you have more than one part that has an error. Ideally it should not happen, but there are always exceptions. That's why knowing too much also is not good, because it confuses you, right? It puts you in a dilemma, okay, which part to choose now. So because we looked at that concept, you were able to quickly identify, okay, part C definitely has an error, because we just saw although and yet cannot come in the same sentence, but you missed out the more obvious error, which is a tense error, which is in part A. Yeah. So I will take this as, both part A and part C having an error. Okay, part A is where the tense error is, and part C I would say is, unnecessary, not needed, yet is superfluous in meaning to although. So yeah, consider that also as an error, but hopefully we don't get into a situation where we have to choose between two errors. Yeah.